Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Jefferson nickel value coins, exploring their iconic design, hidden treasures, and shocking history as we reveal some of the most valuable and ultra-rare U.S. nickels. The coins featured in this video include 1983 Jefferson Nickel, D Mint, Denver. 2000 Jefferson Nickel, D Mint, Denver. 2002 Jefferson Nickel, P Mint, Philadelphia. 2001 Jefferson Nickel, D Mint, Denver. These coins are struck in copper-nickel composition and feature the classic Monticello reverse design, one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. At first glance, these nickels may appear dirty, worn, and heavily circulated, just ordinary pocket change. But don't be fooled. Certain rare mint errors, varieties, and high-grade condition examples have turned some of these seemingly common coins into treasures worth thousands, and in rare cases, even more, dollars today. Money bag. So before you spend that old nickel sitting in your pocket or coin jar, stick around, because you might be holding a hidden fortune in your hands. Backhand index pointing right first up. Coin number 1, listen carefully. Because the 1983 D Jefferson nickel sitting in your change jar is not $1 million lottery ticket. And if someone tells you it will make you a billionaire overnight, they are selling you a dream, not reality. Now let's slow this down. The 1983 D Jefferson nickel was struck at the Denver Mint. The D Mint mark tells you that it's a copper-nickel coin, 75% copper, 25% nickel, with the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the front and Monticello on the reverse. A design Americans have known since 1938. Solid. Simple. Unchanged in spirit for decades. In 1983, America was moving through a different era. Inflation had hit hard in the late 1970s. The early 80s were about recovery. Money moved fast. Coins moved faster. Nickels were used daily, vending machines, arcades, soda machines, bus fares. Millions upon millions of 1983 D nickels were struck and released straight into circulation. They were never meant to be rare. So here is the first important truth. A dirty, worn, heavily circulated 1983 D Jefferson nickel is almost always worth 5 cents. Face value. That's it. Not thousands. Not millions. Not life-changing wealth. But do not click away yet. Because coin collecting is not about average examples. It is about exceptions. Condition changes everything. Most 1983 D nickels were used hard. They lost their shine. Jefferson's hair flattened. The steps of Monticello wore down. The fields became scratched and dull. Finding one today that still has strong original mint luster, bright surfaces, sharp details, clear steps on Monticello, is much harder than finding a worn one. Collectors look for something called full steps on the reverse. The steps of Monticello must be sharply defined and uninterrupted. In high grades, that detail becomes extremely desirable. A high-grade 1983 D nickel with full steps can sell for far more than face value. Sometimes hundreds of dollars depending on condition and grading. Now that's real value. But we need to be realistic. Even the finest known examples do not reach millions of dollars. The coin is modern. It was widely produced. There is no documented standard 1983 D nickel selling for unimaginable millions. That kind of claim belongs to viral exaggeration, not numismatic history. However, errors are where things become interesting. If a 1983 D nickel was struck off-center, struck on the wrong metal planchet, or shows strong double dies, that is a different story. True mint errors are limited by nature. They were never intended to exist. When authenticated, dramatic errors can command significant premiums from collectors who specialize in them. Still not millions. But real money. There is another angle most people ignore. Survival rate. Millions were made. But how many survived in pristine condition? Not nearly as many as the mintage suggests. The early 1980s were not an era when people hoarded nickels carefully in protective holders. Most were spent without a second thought. That makes true gem examples scarcer than casual observers assume. And here is where hype becomes dangerous. Social media sometimes pushes the idea that any old coin could secretly be worth a fortune. That mindset attracts views. It creates excitement. But serious collectors operate differently. They focus on verified sales, third-party grading, condition rarity, and actual demand. A worn 1983 D nickel with scratches, discoloration, and flattened details will not change your life financially. But a sharply struck, high-grade, full-steps example certified by a respected grading service can absolutely be worth far more than 5 cents. The difference is knowledge. The power is not in the coin alone. It is in understanding what makes it special. So what should you do if you find one? First, do not clean it. Cleaning destroys collector value instantly. Scratches from wiping or polishing are permanent. Collectors prefer natural surfaces, even if toned or slightly dull. Second, examine Monticello carefully. Are the steps strong and uninterrupted? Are the details crisp? Tilt the coin under light. Look for the cartwheel luster, that spinning shine effect that indicates original mint surfaces. Third, compare it with known high-grade images from reputable grading archives. Learn the difference between average and exceptional. Because here is the real message. The 1983 D Jefferson Nickel is not a billionaire maker. It is not a hidden lottery ticket guaranteed to bring unimaginable millions. But it is part of a long American coin tradition. It carries the legacy of Thomas Jefferson. It reflects the economy of the early 1980s. It represents everyday American life in metal form. And in the right condition, with the right characteristics, it can absolutely be worth real collector money. Not fantasy wealth, but genuine value. Sometimes the true fortune is not overnight riches. It is the knowledge that lets you separate hype from reality. If you understand that, then you are already ahead of most people holding that same nickel. Before you let that 2000 D Jefferson nickel slip through your fingers, slow down. Because the internet will tell you wild things. It will whisper that this 5-cent coin could be worth millions. That it could turn you into a billionaire overnight. That it holds unimaginable treasure. Now breathe. Let's separate fantasy from reality, and then uncover where the real opportunity actually lives. The 2000 D Jefferson Nickel was struck at the Denver Mint. The small d next to the date confirms it. It carries the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the front and the iconic Monticello building on the reverse, a design Americans recognized instantly for decades before the later redesigns in the mid-2000s. It is made of copper nickel. Solid. Durable. Built for circulation. Built to move. And move it did. By the year 2000, America was stepping into a new millennium. The economy was strong. Commerce was fast. Coins flowed constantly through gas stations, supermarkets, vending machines, laundromats. Millions upon millions of these nickels were minted and released into everyday life. They were never meant to be rare. They were meant to be used. So here is the first truth. A dirty, worn, heavily circulated 2000 D Jefferson nickel, the kind with dull surfaces, flattened details, scratches, discoloration, is almost always worth exactly 5 cents. Face value. Nothing more. That may sound disappointing. But don't click away. Because coin collecting has never been about the average coin. It has always been about the exceptional one hiding among the ordinary. Most 2000 D nickels lived hard lives. They lost their original shine quickly. Jefferson's hair softened. the steps of Monticello faded into smooth lines. Contact marks covered the fields. By the time they reached your pocket years later, they were tired coins. But some survived differently. Some were pulled from rolls early. Some sat untouched in drawers. Some were preserved by collectors who understood that condition changes everything. In the coin world, grade is power. A 2000D Jefferson nickel in high mint state condition, with blazing original luster, crisp lettering, sharp details, becomes a completely different object. And the most important detail on the reverse? The steps of Monticello. Collectors search for what is known as full steps. That means the horizontal steps at the base of Monticello are clearly defined and uninterrupted. Not mushy. Not blended. Not weakly struck. Fully visible. Why does that matter? Because strong full steps on modern nickels are surprisingly difficult to find in top condition. Many coins from the mint were struck with minor weaknesses. When you combine a high numerical grade with strong full steps, demand rises sharply among registry collectors who compete for the finest known examples. Now we are no longer talking about 5 cents. High-grade certified examples, especially those with exceptional eye appeal, can sell for far more than face value. Sometimes into the hundreds of dollars depending on condition and certification. Not millions. Not billionaire overnight wealth. But real, documented collector value. And then there are errors. Mint errors are where excitement truly begins. Off-center strikes. Wrong planchet strikes. Dramatic die cracks. Strong double dies. These are not common. They were never intended. They escaped quality control and entered circulation by accident. A dramatic, authenticated mint error on a 2000D nickel can command significant premiums. Collectors love genuine mistakes because they are limited by nature. No two are exactly alike. But here is the critical warning. Hype spreads faster than facts. Social media often shows exaggerated claims, this nickel is worth millions. Without proof, without grading, without verified sales. That kind of content gets views. But serious collectors rely on condition rarity, third-party grading, and real auction results. A heavily circulated 2000D nickel found in everyday change is not a hidden million-dollar treasure. It is a common coin that did its job faithfully. Yet knowledge changes everything. If you examine one and notice unusually sharp details, bright cartwheel luster spinning under light, clean, uninterrupted full steps, minimal contact marks, you may be holding something worth closer attention. And if you suspect an error, something clearly off-center or struck on the wrong metal, that is when professional evaluation becomes important. Never clean it. Cleaning destroys collector value instantly. A coin with original surfaces, even if slightly toned, is always more desirable than one scrubbed shiny. The 2000D Jefferson Nickel is not powerful because it guarantees overnight fortune. It is powerful because it teaches you how to see. How to notice small differences. How to understand that value is not random, it is created by rarity, condition, and demand working together. Most people see 5 cents. A trained eye sees potential, sometimes modest, sometimes meaningful. And sometimes, that understanding is worth far more than the coin itself. Coin number 3, hold that nickel. Yes, that small 5-cent coin dated 2002 with a tiny P mint mark. Before you believe the headlines. Before you imagine millions. Before you think billionaire overnight. Slow down. Let's talk about the real story of the 2002 P. Jefferson Nickel. In 2002, the United States was in a different mood. The early 2000s were marked by economic shifts, national change, and a country adjusting to a new era. Through all of that, everyday commerce continued. Coins still moved from hand to hand. And among them was the Jefferson Nickel, steady, familiar, unchanged in design since decades before. On the front, Thomas Jefferson. Calm. Detailed. Recognizable. On the back, Monticello, his historic Virginia home, standing firm with its classic columns and steps. A symbol of early American architecture and intellectual legacy. The 2002 P nickel was struck in Philadelphia. The P Mint mark confirms it. It was made of copper nickel, the same durable alloy used for decades. It was not created as a limited edition. It was not made from gold. It was not meant to be rare treasure. It was made to circulate. Millions were produced. Millions entered banks. Millions went straight into vending machines, grocery stores, bus fares, coin jars. Most of them did exactly what they were designed to do, move. So here is the honest truth first. A dirty, worn, heavily circulated 2002 P Jefferson nickel is almost always worth exactly 5 cents. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Not millions. Just 5 cents. That may not sound dramatic. But the drama begins when we talk about condition. Because condition changes everything in the coin world. Most 2002 P nickels were not saved carefully. They were not protected in plastic holders. They were used. They were scratched. They lost their original shine. Jefferson's hair flattened. The fine lines of Monticello softened. The steps blended together. But a small percentage survived differently. A few coins were pulled from rolls early. A few were stored away. A few retained their full original luster, that spinning cartwheel effect you see when you tilt the coin under light. Collectors pay attention to that. And more importantly, they look at the steps of Monticello. Full steps. Those clean, sharp horizontal lines beneath the building are one of the most important details on Jefferson Nickels. If the steps are fully separated and uninterrupted, that coin stands above the average. A 2002 P nickel with strong full steps and high mint state condition can sell for far more than 5 cents. In top certified grades, it can reach into the hundreds of dollars depending on demand and registry competition. That is real collector value. Not fantasy. Not overnight billionaire dreams. But legitimate premium value for exceptional examples. Now let's talk about errors. Mint errors are where coins become truly fascinating. If a 2002 P nickel was struck off-center, or struck on the wrong metal planchet, or shows strong doubled letters, or has dramatic die cracks, that coin becomes something completely different. Errors are limited by accident. They were never meant to exist. And collectors love what was never meant to happen. A dramatic, authenticated error on a 2002 P Jefferson nickel can command serious premiums depending on the severity, and I appeal. But here is the key difference between viral hype and reality. There is no verified, standard 2002 P Jefferson nickel worth millions of dollars simply because of its date. There is no known example that turns a worn 5-cent coin into billionaire wealth overnight. What creates value is rarity within condition and error, not imagination. The true power of this coin is not magical wealth. It is knowledge. When you understand what to look for, sharp detail, full steps, blazing luster, minimal marks, you stop seeing 5 cents. You start seeing possibilities. And sometimes those possibilities are worth grading. But if your coin is dark, smooth, heavily scratched, with blended steps and faded details, it has likely lived the life it was meant to live. Honest circulation. Honest wear. Honest 5-cent value. And there is nothing wrong with that. Because every coin carries history. The 2002 P Jefferson nickel represents a moment in early 21st century America. It passed through thousands of hands. It bought small things. It made everyday life possible in quiet ways. That story alone gives it meaning. The fortune part? That depends entirely on condition and rarity. So before you spend it, examine it. Tilt it under light. Study Monticello's steps. Check Jefferson's hair details. Look for anything unusual or dramatic. If it's average, spend it without fear. If it's exceptional, protect it. Because in the coin world, knowledge is worth more than hype. And sometimes the smallest coin teaches the biggest lesson. Coin number 4. Stop for a second. That 2001 Jefferson nickel in your hand, it looks ordinary. Small. Light. Just 5 cents. Something most people would drop into a jar without a second thought. But let's slow this down. Because when people hear valuable coin, imagination runs wild. $1 million. Overnight fortune. Hidden treasure. Social media has turned simple pocket change into dramatic headlines. Now take a breath. The 2001 Jefferson Nickel was struck at the Denver Mint. The small d beside the date confirms it. It's made of copper nickel, the same durable blend used for decades. On the front, Thomas Jefferson. Calm. Detailed. Familiar. On the reverse, Monticello, his historic home, standing solid with its columns and layered steps. By 2001, America was stepping into a new century. Coins were still essential to daily life. Nickels flowed through vending machines, convenience stores, transit systems, laundromats. Millions of 2001 nickels were produced and released into circulation. They were not rare from the start. They were built for movement. So here is the first truth. A dirty, worn, heavily circulated 2001 Jefferson nickel is worth 5 cents. Not thousands. Not millions. Not billionaire money. 5 cents. That may sound simple, but coin collecting is never about the average coin. It's about the exceptional survivor. Most 2001 nickels lived hard lives. They clinked against other coins. They were scratched, dropped, stacked, rolled, and spent. The fine details of Jefferson's hair softened. The lines on Monticello blended. The steps beneath the building became flat and weak. The original mint shine disappeared. But not every coin followed that path. Some were saved early. Some remained untouched in bank rolls. Some kept their original luster, that spinning cartwheel shine you see when you tilt the coin under light. And that is where things change. Collectors focus heavily on condition. A high-grade 2001 nickel with minimal marks, strong strike, and blazing luster is far more desirable than a worn example. But the most important detail? The steps of Monticello. Full steps. Those clean, uninterrupted lines beneath the building are critical. If the steps are sharp and fully defined, collectors pay attention. Many nickels from this era were not struck strongly enough to show full detail. So when one appears with strong full steps in top mint state grades, it becomes special. Certified high-grade examples with full steps can sell for significantly more than face value. Sometimes into the hundreds of dollars depending on grade and demand. That's real collector value. Not fantasy. Not exaggerated hype. But genuine premium value tied to condition rarity. Now let's talk about errors. Errors are where excitement truly begins in the coin world. If a 2001 nickel was struck off-center, or struck on the wrong metal planchet, or shows dramatic doubling in the letters or date, or carries a major die crack across the surface, that coin is no longer ordinary. Mint errors are accidental. They were never meant to exist. And collectors love what was never meant to happen. A dramatic, authenticated mint error on a 2001 nickel can command strong premiums. But here's the critical truth again. There is no verified standard 2001 Jefferson nickel worth millions simply because of the date. There is no documented billionaire-making example of an ordinary circulated piece. Valuing coins is built on three pillars: rarity, condition, and demand. Remove one of those, and the magic disappears. If your 2001 nickel is dark, scratched, heavily worn, and missing detail, it has lived its intended life. Honest circulation. Honest 5-cent value. But if you find one that looks unusually sharp, with blazing luster, crisp lettering, and strong, clear full steps, then you may have something worth closer examination. And remember this: never clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Even light polishing can leave hairline scratches that reduce a coin's worth dramatically. Collectors prefer natural surfaces, even-toned or slightly dull, over artificially shiny ones. The real power of the 2001 Jefferson Nickel is not an overnight fortune. It is an understanding. When you learn what makes one coin ordinary and another exceptional, you gain an advantage most people never develop. Most people see 5 cents. A trained eye sees potential, sometimes small, sometimes meaningful. The difference is knowledge. So before you spend that 2001 nickel, take a moment. Study it. Tilt it under light. Look at Monticello's steps. Look at Jefferson's hair detail. Search for anything unusual. If it's average, let it go without regret. If it's exceptional, protect it. Because sometimes the smallest coin doesn't change your life with millions. It changes your perspective with awareness.